Do you know about Carl Jung and the shadow? So whatever triggers you, they say, this is the theory of Carl Jung, which there's nobody smarter about psychology than Carl Jung, and they say whatever triggers you, like whatever you have a reaction to in someone else, like a strong reaction, like I hate that or what the fuck, that means that there is a part of you that you're suppressing. That's the theory behind homophobia. The people who are the most homophobic are the people who feel same-sex attraction and are shamed by it, so they have to suppress that's a part of them. And so then they project it on other people, and then it upsets them. Homosexuality gets them because they're suppressing that part of them. And so that's a phenomenon you see everywhere. You know that term. It's so common. Everyone knows what projection means. Oh, you're projecting. Everyone knows that came from Carl Jung. So everyone knows what that means. And so you'll see a lot of people doing that on Twitter when it comes to politics, projecting. And they'll say that you're privileged if you won't vote for Joe Biden. Now, I've never heard a poor person say that. It's always the millionaires that I know from Hollywood, or that I don't know. It's or a millionaire that I don't fucking know. Very few people who don't have health care say shit like that. Very few people who don't have health care. Very few people who just went bankrupt say shit like that. The people I know, the blue-collar people I know, like, for instance, the people who are running Our Revolution Los Angeles, and people like them, the union people that we have on the show, Christian Smalls, our friend Nick Smith from West Virginia, from Virginia, the Waffle House cook, those people don't say shit like that. What blue-collar Waffle House cooks say is, we knew Donald Trump was a loudmouth Yankee who should have had his ass kicked in years ago. But at least he was offering us something. We are desperate. So I'm encouraging the blue-check Hollywood world, instead of voter shaming people who aren't inclined to vote for someone who's offering them nothing, maybe you try to pressure the politicians. Maybe you pressure Joe Biden. Why don't you offer health care to these people? Why don't you give them student debt relief? Why don't you make marijuana legal? Get all those people out of prison. Why don't you vow to end the wars and give people jobs? Why don't you do anything? So that's the mission of this show during this election cycle, is to get blue check Hollywood and anybody else who has a platform, instead of voter shaming people who are desperate, telling them to stifle their desires, wants, and to not ask politicians for anything. Instead, maybe you pressure the politician to actually meet the needs of a constituent, so they can actually earn their vote, because that's how politics works. And so when you see someone saying, oh, you're a privilege, you're privileged so you don't have to vote, that's them projecting. It's only millionaires saying that. People who have no problems. So if you don't have a problem that government can solve, you're telling people to vote for Joe Biden and to stop whining. But if you have a problem that government can solve, you want Joe Biden to solve it. And you're sick and tired of people telling you to shut up. And you want Joe Biden to say he's going to provide you health care like the rest of the goddamn world. You want him to say he's going to provide a $15 minimum, a jobs program, student debt relief. So, which brings me to this. Now, here's the executive producer of the Fox show, Simpsons, The Simpsons. That's who this guy is. And he's been tweeting stuff like this for the last week, voter shaming hard poor people or regular people who won't vote for Biden, or people who want Biden to offer them something. People demanding something out of Joe Biden for their vote. He's been voter shaming those people because he's worth probably, I don't know, $50-60 million minimum. And so he doesn't have a problem that he needs Joe Biden to solve. So what that does is that stirs up, that excites his inner asshole. So that excites his inner asshole, and then he starts projecting. So here we go. Let's read. He goes, to those on the left who won't vote for Biden, I disagree with your choice, but respect that it is your choice. You're going to soon see how much he respects it. So that's bullshit. That's him. That's gaslighting you. That's him. That's not real. He doesn't respect it. He says, who would you vote for? Well, it's 3 months before the election, Dana. I would wait until 5 seconds before I walk in the booth to vote. Until then, I'm going to pressure Joe Biden to fulfill the needs of poor people and regular working people. How about that? You know, Joe Biden, the guy who wrote the crime bill that incarcerated poor black and brown people, who bragged about his crime bill that say we do everything except lynch jaywalkers. That's what he said. Hasn't that person already asked you to vote for Biden? So he's saying Bernie Sanders. Who would you vote for? Bernie Sanders? Hasn't Bernie Sanders already asked you to vote for Biden? Hey, why are you thinking for yourself in a democracy? Aren't you supposed to do what politicians tell you to? Especially if they turn their back on you? So he said, or is raging against the machine just a comfortable and familiar end unto itself? So that doesn't sound like he respects your choice. So that's a lie. That's him trying to pretend like he's a good person and that his inner asshole isn't stimulated. It is, and he's being an asshole. And he doesn't, not only does he not support Bernie Sanders, he doesn't support Medicare for all. He doesn't think you should have health care. Dana Gould, executive producer of The Simpsons, who made tens of millions of dollars from Rupert Murdoch. And he also thinks raging against the machine is comfortable. So this guy says if you really, really want to have a legit discussion about this, he does not. But if you really want to have a legit discussion about this, get some real answers from that point of view, from a well-informed peer, I think you should talk with Jimmy Dore. You may still disagree, but I think you'll understand and respect that thinking more. Thanks, fan of you both. Now, truth be told, I was a fan of Dana Gould's, also his stand-up comedy, and of course, I love The Simpsons. So I guess they never did an episode on Medicare for all on The Simpsons. I guess they never figured that out over at Rupert Murdoch Television, that at Simpsons, that Medicare for all was actually the solution to our problem. I never noticed that, but I guess that now I realize that The Simpsons never did that episode, I guess. Or if they did, Dana Gould was off that week. So he says, you know, there you go. You may not disagree, but I think you'll understand and respect that thinking more. Thanks, fan of youth. What he says is, by talking to Jimmy Dore, do you mean ask Jimmy a question and then listen to him scream Tucker Carlson talking points until I get in my car and drive away? So that was disappointing. That was quite a bummer. As a fan of his stand-up and a fan of The Simpsons, it was obvious that he was just being an asshole. And he wanted to do a cheap smear that he couldn't back up. He couldn't back this up because people asked him. Well, what I said was, no, Dana, you got it backwards. I scream my talking points. I scream my talking points to Tucker. Sometimes you talk to folks from all sides when you're not a partisan hack about politics. Try it sometimes and drive safe. So other people came in to challenge him, and they said Jimmy Dore says the same thing, whether he's talking to Tucker, Alex Jones, Democrats, lefties, politicians. They're called principles. Look into some. What is one of his Tucker Carlson talking points? This is someone asking Dana to back up what he just said. A public smear of someone who's on the right side of an issue. So he's on the wrong side of an issue. He's a condescending inner asshole. And now he's doing drive-by smears. And he can't back it up. And so people call him out. Genuinely curious as a listener of Jimmy Dore, who has the impression that he's a good media presence. What is one of his Tucker Carlson talking points? Never responds. Tucker is notorious for his hardline stance in favor of single-payer health care, free college education, federal jobs guarantee, and taxing the rich. Are those kind of talking points? Because that's what I say. Here's someone else caught him. Hey, Tucker Carlson supports Black Lives Matter? Because Jimmy Dore does. Tucker Carlson cares about the gender wage gap? Tucker Carlson cares about teacher unions? Because Jimmy Dore does. What have you done, Dana, to help teacher unions? Tucker Carlson cares about the Flint water crisis. Really? What have you done about the Flint water crisis? And Tucker Carlson cares about demilitarizing the police? Like, Jimmy, really? Does Tucker support immigrants? So these are people pointing out what an obviously smarmy thing that was and a cheap shot that was from a guy who a lot of people respect in Hollywood, but he's revealing he doesn't have a lot of integrity. He deleted most of his posts in that thread, by the way. All these people responding to him, he deleted most of his posts. They were so stomach churning and wrong. So I love what Evan says. Evan says, you've got your nose stuck up because someone who's on your side is pointing out flaws in your side. Your leader is a fraud. And people are supposed to follow him blindly because Orange Man bad? That's a little old by now. Dana, you say you're a comedian, but you come off as a pompous asshole to someone who was saying they need more than empty promises from Biden. Stop being such a prick, my dude. And then this guy who started it, asking him that question, comes back and he says, all right, how about talk to Ryan Knight? Or maybe talk to For a People's Party, that's Nick Brana. Or talk to Governor Jesse Ventura. Or are you just talking down to us, being a rich, judgmental snob bully for fun? Thought maybe you were actually interested. That's why the recommendations. I know you don't respect us regular people now. And that's exactly right. And that's exactly right. He's not interested in an idea that contradicts his. He's not interested in actually learning or solving the problem because he doesn't have any problems. He's a 50 millionaire who's never had to worry about seeing a doctor or where to send his kid to school or how much to pay his kid's nanny. How much do you pay his kid's nanny? Does your kid's nanny have health care? I bet. He doesn't have any of those problems. None. So he doesn't understand why someone would want to ask Joe Biden to provide shit for them. He doesn't get it. And so instead of trying to understand people, he would rather be a smear merchant, underhanded insulter, instead of actually engage, because he's at the end of the day, doesn't have any integrity, turns out, and he's a coward. Because he knew if he came on the show, I'd make him look like the biggest asshole that he is, that he did to himself on Twitter. That's why he had to delete half his posts. That's right. The executive producer of The Simpsons went on a Twitter tirade about people not supporting corruption and Medicare for all, and he had to delete half of his posts. That's right. So I love that this person on says, I would second Proud Socialist. He's a good person to talk on this if you're curious. And then Jimmy Hyde says again, he's not curious. He just felt like building better Biden bullying. And this is the kind of stuff that Dana tweets on the regular. Nothing says white privilege like a principled protest vote that keeps immigrant children in cages. What I said was nothing says I'm a rich asshole who doesn't have a clue what he's talking about more than whitewashing crimes of the Obama administration who deported more Hispanics than any other president and built those cages you are virtue signaling about. And just to make sure he knew I wasn't making it up, here's PolitiFact, one of his favorite liberal organizations. Even they agree with him. Here's what they say. But for Biden to say Obama's administration did not put people in cages is inaccurate. Okay? And then you can read the rest. I won't bother you with it. Here's a poor person. So he's saying nothing says white privilege like a principled protest vote that keeps immigrant children in cages, not knowing that it was Barack Obama who built those cages. Barack Obama deported more immigrants than any other president in the history of our country. So that's like stomach churning. Kind of self-righteousness that's incorrect. And so here's a poor person says, nothing says privilege like thinking the problems begin and end with Donald Trump. During the Obama administration, ICE agents broke into my student's home, guns drawn, grabbed his mother, tore off her rosary, and dragged her away in front of her terrified 6-year-old. It took months for the family to get her out, even though she was here legally. He was still having panic attacks about it in 3rd grade. If he didn't see his mother waiting for him at the end of the day, he would shake and cry, "My mother is not coming home." So could you be a bigger asshole to that woman? Could you be a bigger asshole to that kid? Pretending that their experience didn't happen under Barack Obama? So you're erasing their experience because it doesn't fit your privileged white millionaire narrative, Dana Gould? Yes, that's what you're doing. You're erasing poor Hispanics' actual experience under the Barack and Joe Biden administration because it doesn't fit your privileged 50 millionaire white preconceived notion. And you're 100%, 1,000% wrong about it. And he doesn't care because it would take integrity to apologize for that. And he doesn't have any. How do I know it? He revealed it on Twitter. And then all the stuff that he wouldn't take responsibility for, he erased. He tried to delete history. Now, we all know we can go get those tweets, and I probably will. Beth says, nothing says white privilege like an actor whose vote shames every 4 years but does nothing in between to actually help the working class who can't afford to feed their families, can't afford to see a doctor, and are on the verge of becoming homeless. That happened under Obama. People became homeless under Obama. People couldn't see a doctor under Obama. People got in prison for marijuana under Obama. What? We invaded foreign countries under false pretenses and turned them into failed states under Obama. We did that in Libya. We did commit a genocide in Yemen under Obama. We dropped more bombs than George Bush did under Obama. Come on. He took us from 2 wars to 7 under Obama. So what she did was she went to his Twitter account and seen how many times he tweeted about the minimum wage. You care so much. So this is an easy way to expose his hypocrisy and his lack of integrity and consistency. No results from Dana Gould, $15 minimum wage. Not one. Not one tweet about that. Isn't that interesting? And the only time he tweets about Medicare for all is to tell you can't have it and to suck it and vote for Joe Biden. This is the executive producer of The Simpsons, probably one of the richest guys in Hollywood, who is also a comedian. He's not really an artist anymore. He's just a super rich guy with a sense of humor, because you can't be that out of touch and still think you're creating art. You're creating humorous things, not art. Well, if you want Medicare for all, he could move to Vermont, but they got rid of it because it didn't work. That's his opinion on you getting health care. Right now, everyone's losing their job. That's his opinion on you getting health care. It doesn't work. Why? Because he's rich and he's got it. He's rich and he's got it. And he doesn't have the ability to understand a problem until it affects him personally, because as you know, once you have millions of dollars, you lose the ability to pick up on other people, other human beings' facial expressions even. You become that numb to yourself. And that's who that is. Fuck you if you want health care. I got mine. Fuck you. That's who that is. That's who Dana Gould is. And underneath, he says, I look forward to all of the liberal support for Medicare for all after we beat Trump. He says, I think they'll probably try to find a system that works. Well, the system we have now works for you and your kid and your kid's nanny. Right? I think they'll probably try to find a system that works. They'll experiment with Medicare for all. The experiment with Medicare for all in Vermont, he says, revealed deep systemic flaws in the proposition that needs to be addressed. The experiment? You know that there's been a Medicare for all experiment happening in London since World War II? You know there's a Medicare for all experiment happening in France forever? Experiment. Are you going to tell me we need more research on marijuana too, Dana? Because that's what you sound like. Actually, you don't sound like those kind of people. You are those kind of people. You are now those kind of people. You became the thing comedians used to make fun of. You became it. Congratulations. So what he's literally advocating for is the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. And I don't know, wasn't there some rich, privileged white asshole who said something about the tranquilizing drug of gradual? Oh, no, that was Martin Luther King. That was Martin Luther King. He's advocating for the very thing Martin Luther King said was bullshit. And he's doing it from his white privileged perch of a 50 millionaire. Also, just in case you didn't know, they never tried Medicare for all in Vermont. Again, he's wrong about that. He doesn't know Barack Obama built the cages that were putting immigrants in. He doesn't know that Barack Obama and the Democratic Party coalesced around Joe Biden and it wasn't the voters who really picked him. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know that Vermont didn't ever actually try single-payer health care. Doesn't know that. And he doesn't know how stupid it sounds to advocate for incrementalism. I retweeted, when he tweeted out, nothing says white privilege like a principled protest vote that keeps immigrant children in cages. I retweeted Bree Droy. She said, it's an incredible privilege not to understand how many people faced an existential threat before Trump. And incredibly callous and short-sighted to demand that voters ignore their lives when you could ask Biden to support life-saving popular policies instead. Why won't you do that? Why wouldn't you ask Joe Biden to actually do something for the people he wants them to vote for him? Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you pressure Joe Biden? Because you're a coward and a bully. And bullies don't ever stand up to power. They always side with power. And that's what Dana Gould is, a coward siding with a bully. But he's super rich, so he doesn't have to worry about it. Doesn't care who's president. He just doesn't like that Trump is president. Why? Projection. Because all the shitty parts of Trump are in him. He doesn't care about our fucked up country. He cares that he has to be reminded of it. And that's what Trump does. People who voter shame are bullies at heart. Bullies don't stand up to power. They side with it and attack those who have the courage that they lack. Oh, I wonder where I got that idea. It was from him. Rick Overton says, Dana Gould doesn't realize that his true betrayers are the ones talking him into saying things like this. The ratio is pretty conclusively weighted towards the negative. They obviously don't care how he comes off to everyone else. They're not the ones saying it. Oh, did Biden add abolishing ICE and the DHS to his platform yet? No. Whoops, I guess those children can be free, but their parents stay in cages. That's compromise, though, right? These people truly live in an alternate reality where facts don't matter, just like Trump Republicans. Yes, they do. Blue check fucking Hollywood liberals who voter shame are just as adverse to facts as Trump Republicans. These are the same people who think Obama's biggest scandal was the tan suit and not that he dropped the equivalent of 3 bombs every hour, 24/7, 365 days a year in 2016. I know. Malcolm Fleschner says voter shaming isn't about trying to persuade anyone to change their vote. It's about chastising others for refusing to validate your decision to compromise your values. Dana Gould says every liberal not voting Biden I have encountered is a well-heeled white person wallowing in privilege. Again, that's called projection. Because most of the people I know aren't. They're blue collar. And what Dana's really revealing here is that the bubble he lives in is full of rich white people. That's all that reveals. Really? You're hanging out with a lot of blue collar fucking black and brown people? Are you, Dana? That's what he unwittingly just revealed, his projection of privilege because he knows he has it and he feels guilty about his privilege. That's called the shadow. That's what Carl Jung refers to as the shadow. He knows he's of privilege. He knows it. And he knows what he's contributed to society doesn't equal the fucking money he got back. He knows that the janitor over at Fox works way harder than he fucking ever did. So he has that. He has to push that down. So he knows that's in him, that privilege. And so he projects it. He projects it onto someone else.
I do think it's funny that he says, I have encountered is a
That I have encountered.
Seriously, you haven't been mixing it up with somebody that doesn't share your same opinions.
Did you go down
because
to
the Hollywood parties you're going to, Dana, are surrounded by people who are saying, Nancy Pelosi is doing a great job.
My friends go to these, hang out with those kind of people. They do that. I told you my friend, he hit series right now, tells me I went to these other famous comedians' house for a social distance dinner, and they were talking about how great Nancy Pelosi is. That's who they are.
That's privilege.
That's privilege.
Or they just are blocking out reality.
He's just revealing he doesn't hang out with anybody but privileged white people.
And you know what? I just want to say, I'm tan and I'm a Latina. Biden, come get my vote. Trump, come get my vote. Who's going to come get my vote? Medicare for all.
Steph,
come get my vote on policy.
Steph, you're one of those privileged high school teachers.
Yes, I am.
You're a Mexican privileged high school teacher, according to him, that you're a white person wallowing in privilege, even though you're a Mexican high school teacher.
Wallowing in it.
Wallowing in that teacher cash, that teacher privilege. You got that teacher privilege, that public school teacher privilege.
Well, I'm sure Dana. Don't you think Dana sent his kids to public school?
I'm sure he sent his kid to public school, right? Dana, you sent your kids to public. You didn't do a privilege thing and send them to private school with a nanny, did you? You didn't take all that Rupert Murdoch money.
And don't get me started on nannies, Jimmy.
Whatever happened to your nanny, Dana? There was a time when Bernie spoke for me, when he campaigned against money, corruption, pushed for Medicare for all, but he stopped speaking for me when he endorsed Biden, who represented everything he had campaigned against for nothing in return. At this point, I no longer hear Bernie. That's a regular person, James Kroger. And then underneath it says, if Sanders was actually elected, he would have been assassinated quicker than JFK. James Kroger says, not if he had taken Tulsi Gabbard as his vice president. Dana Gould says, it's true, the KGB takes care of their own. Do you see what we're talking? Do you see?
Funny, quippy, insightful.
That's the kind of joke my mother could have written. So you see how he's not an artist anymore? He's doing McCarthyism against a soldier currently serving in the fucking military. You're going to do that thing that Trump did to that Gold Star family? So that just shows you guys like Dana Gould hate Trump because of the shadow. He's just like Trump. They just like, he likes to shame soldiers who disagree with him politically, just like Trump did with that Gold Star family during the convention in 2016. So he's doing that to a currently serving soldier. He's McCarthy smearing her. So that's why these guys are so triggered by Trump instead of how we got Trump. I'm triggered by how we got Trump. They're triggered by Trump, right? Because he represents the part of themselves. That's Carl Jung in the shadow. Trump is the one who will smear a soldier for political gain. He's doing it too. They're the mirror. They're the mirror of Trump. That's why the people who hate him the loudest, instead of the system that gave us him, are Trump. That's Carl Jung in the shadow. That's why Keith Olbermann is such a fucking maniac, McCarthy smearing, Russia-gating conspiracy theorist too. Some of the biggest personalities on the left are triggered by Trump. Why? Because they're just like him underneath, and that's the part of them that they have to push down, that they have to deny to themselves. And they project it onto Trump, and here it is. Here it is, just like Trump. I'll smear a soldier if it helps me make a political point on Twitter. This is horrible, and it happens every single day. Also, you have spent the past 2 days mocking people who demand an end to our insane and cruel healthcare system. Why? He says, I try to be optimistic but practical realist with little patience for all or nothing holdouts. A big change happens slowly and incrementally, especially with deeply entrenched and well-funded opposition. Well, how did they get Medicare for all in England? Did it take 150 years? How did they get Medicare for all in Canada? Did it take 150 years? How did they get Medicare for all in France? Did it take 150 years? Germany? How did they do it? How did Russia get Medicare for all? Did it take 150? What are you fucking talking about? People are dying today, right now, because of corruption. That's the only reason we don't have health care in America is corruption. This is stunning. Yes, Medicare for all didn't work. We should just abandon every idea that rich people sabotage out of their own self-interest. Good call, Dana. Dana Gould is like if Hillary's private position started doing stand-up. That's what Dana Gould is like. He's like if Hillary's private position started doing stand-up. The people you are arguing with are not Trump voters, Dana. They are activists demanding better from their politicians. Would be cool if you and all the other punching down blue checks joined them instead of telling them to shut up. We might actually get somewhere. Well, that's never going to happen because guys like Dana weren't raised right. Dana Gould should go home and slap his fucking mother because she did a shit job raising him. He's a horrible human being who's got lots of money. He's got more money than he can ever spend. And what does he do? He wags his finger at poor people demanding shit from their government. Basic necessities. You know, we live in a failed state. 80% of workers live paycheck to paycheck. 30 million Americans have no health care whatsoever. 80 million are underinsured. Tens of thousands of people die every year from lack of health care. Access. We live in a failed state. You fucking Fredo. I understand why elected Democrats want to make it unpalatable to demand more from them, but I'll never understand regular people who are happy to aid them in this. Recreationally defending powerful politicians from criticism and getting nothing in return. That's a serf mindset. The Democrats provoked this response after decades of selling out the working class and merging with Republicans as a corporatist leviathan. The only leverage we have is to deny them our vote. All wars have casualties, and I'm sorry it's come to this. Every liberal not voting for Biden I have encountered, there it is. Hey, FYI, if you're so rich that you have no problems you need government to solve, yet continue virtue signaling that you are voting for Biden instead of screaming about him vowing to deny health care to poor people during a pandemic, you're not a good person. You're an out-of-touch rich asshole. So when you call Tulsi Gabbard a KGB agent, you know that Joe Biden accepted her endorsement? So the guy you're voting for is now in bed with Russian assets? Do you see how it gets fucked up when you start McCarthyism, Dana? When you start doing McCarthy smears? Do you see how it gets you, oh, what a tangled web you weave when first you practice to McCarthy smear? And just the irony of a guy who made tens of millions of dollars with checks signed by Rupert Murdoch, wagging his finger at anybody else, telling them that they're not doing enough for poor black and brown people, who made millions of dollars for Rupert Murdoch. That's some ball. I would say you have balls, but we all know you don't have balls, Dana. That's why you won't come on the show or actually even engage me on Twitter. You will do a cheap shot and take off because you're a coward.
Would you really have Dana on your show?
I would love to. Are you kidding? Fuck yeah. And of course, I'll bump into him after this is over. We'll bump into each other, probably hard. Probably hard. Because I remember the last time I bumped into Dana Gould, I was at the Turner Classic Movie Festival, and I was at the Roosevelt Hotel. Oh, maybe this is why he doesn't like me. Because his girlfriend stopped me because she was a big fan of my show. And she was like, oh, my God, Jimmy Dore. And she said, I am a big fan. So I come over, and she's sitting at the counter. And as she's telling me how much she loves my show, I realize she's sitting with Dana Gould. And I go, oh, wow, who's this? I don't know. Is this your nanny? Who is this? Is this your girlfriend? I don't know who this young girl was. But obviously it was his girlfriend. And so that probably hurt his feelings. He got a little jealous that all the money in the world still couldn't help another woman right in your fucking face saying that shit to me. All the money in the world couldn't help that. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? All your $50 million couldn't stop. That's what this is about. Your girlfriend had a crush on me, and she told you right in your fucking face in public. That's what this is about. And if you wanted to, and if you thought I was a Tucker Carlson talking point machine, you could have said something to me right then, but you didn't because you're a fucking pussy. You're just a little coward, a little fucking pipsqueak with your $50 million. Can't wait to bump into you again. I hope you're with that little girl again, or that your girlfriend, that woman who's not age appropriate that you were with. I hope she's with you again, so I give her a big kiss. If you are poor and pledging your vote to Joe Biden 3 months before the election, you have internalized corporate propaganda and are unwittingly protecting the powerful and getting nothing for it. So here would be my final thing I would say to Dana, because I know you don't know much. I know you don't know that Obama and the Democratic Party chose Joe Biden, not the voters. I know you don't know that because you deleted that tweet. I know you don't know that Barack Obama built those cages that Trump is putting those kids in, and that Barack Obama deported more immigrants than all the other presidents combined. I know you don't know any. Don't know that Barack Obama spent 8 years bombing Muslim countries, which is why there's Muslims at the airport that Trump banned. Does Barack Obama have to bomb Muslims at an airport for you to care? Apparently, yes, it does. That's how ignorant and out of touch Dana Gould is, right? He has no idea that we've been bombing poor black and brown people in the rest of the world. Barack Obama's whole entire presidency. And by the way, when there was an economic downturn, when Barack Obama was president, did he help the people? Oh, no, he kicked 5.1 million families out of their house while making sure the banks got bigger and never missed a bonus. Imagine if Trump did that right now. Oh, that is what they're doing right now. They're doing it again. And who's doing it? Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, and Trump. There is no two-party system. Now who's being naive, Kay? And here's this is just for you, Dana, because I know you're still watching, because you're that much of a narcissist, and you have that lack of integrity that you didn't stop right now and go fucking call a psychiatrist. You're still watching this. So listen to Lawrence O'Donnell.
If you want to pull the party, the major party that is closest to the way you're thinking, to what you're thinking, you must show them that you're capable of not voting for them. If you don't show them you're capable of not voting for them, they don't have to listen to you. I promise you that. I worked within the Democratic Party. I didn't listen or have to listen to anything on the left while I was working in the Democratic Party, because the left had nowhere to go.
So a normal person would apologize for all that stupid shit they said on Twitter and apologize for everybody and do a mea culpa and realize that you've been doing projecting. You've been doing that classic Carl Jung thing, projection, telling other people they have white privilege when you're actually a 50 millionaire who doesn't need anything from Joe Biden. But poor people do need something from him, and he won't give it to them. And all you'll give those same people you claim to be standing up for is finger wagging and shame. Why don't you come on the show and tell my Mexican high school teacher that she's of white privilege? Because you're a fucking coward. You're a cuck. But I think you might come on because I know personally that Dana does enjoy humiliation. It helps him come. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.